Welcome to the lesson on active reading. In this lesson, we're going to think about the differences between active and inactive reading. Inactive reading being what we think of as reading for pleasure. Here are some key terms that are going to be addressed. These will be on your final exam on test 1. So you want to pause it and write down the definitions, make a note of what these things are, what they mean as we go through. So what are the differences between active reading and inactive reading? Well, what do inactive readers do? These are people who are reading a novel. They are reading a blog on their phone. They are reading a newspaper, perhaps, or a magazine. They are being as comfortable as they can be. They are laid back. Their feet are up. They are reading for pleasure and pleasure alone. Here is the kind of reading we hope that you will learn to do for your college classes and for anything that you want to really process, to understand, and remember. What do active readers do? This girl is taking notes in her book. She is obviously paying attention. These two people are collaborating. They're sharing information, talking about what they're reading. You can tell that it's very serious. And here's a lovely, beautiful book that somebody has very actively read and marked it with a highlighter. So these are the kind of things that you'll be doing when you're reading actively. Maybe not all of them at the same time, but you will be doing some of them. And there are strategies for handling the reading process and doing it better. So here is the reading process. There are just 3 stages, the reading stages: before, during, and after you read. And if you pay attention to what your brain is doing while you're reading and use some of these strategies, your ability to read well, and to really remember and gain understanding is going to improve. So let's look at the first stage. Before you read, the things you can do, and here's one of the definitions, is survey and preview. Look at the introduction, look at the titles, the subtitles, look at any of the pictures or the graphs or whatever there is with that. Maybe even a summary at the end, or when they pull out a quote and you read it, you can tell a lot about the article before you begin, and that's going to help your brain get ready to understand that material. Ask yourself preview questions. How long is this article? What kind of article is it? Is it very serious? Is it more of a light-hearted article? How long is it going to take you to read this article? Well, you can ask yourself all these questions before you begin. And as you're asking yourself these questions, you are activating your schema. Here is that one of the first words is schema, and you are relating to this information. Your brain is pulling back and saying, I already know something about this. So the definition of schema is your background knowledge. It is whatever you already know about a subject. It includes knowledge gained from prior study and just life experiences. Maybe it's about basketball. You played in a basketball team when you were in middle school. You have a lot of information that some people don't. And this is a reason 2 students in the same class may have different levels of difficulty understanding something, because one may have life experience that the other does not. All right, let's go back. Here's during the reading. You need to have your brain guiding itself, monitoring itself while you're reading. How many times have you read something and you stopped and thought, I don't remember anything from that paragraph that I just read? Well, your mind was monitoring. You should constantly ask yourself, what is the author's main point of this? What is the main point of this whole article? What's the main point of the paragraph? And if you don't understand the point that the author is making, you need to stop. Go to the next phase here. You need to resolve gaps. You need to go back and reread it as needed, or just make a note that you didn't understand it and come back to it, and maybe you'll understand it better later. Use the context clues that we've already studied in prior lessons to figure out what it is about. And the part that I like the most, I really enjoy doing, is marking the test, annotating the test. Okay? You're going to highlight it, you're going to make marginal notes, put question marks. That's called annotating. Annotating. And after you read, you are going to stop and anticipate test questions, especially during this course when you know you're going to have a lot of questions after everything that you read. What is the main idea? What were the important points? How did they support what they've said? Okay, and you're going to rehearse information. You might create a picture of all the different points, how they tie together. Write an outline or a summary, and we'll be practicing some of those things, so you don't have to pay too much attention to that now. All of these things that you're doing, paying attention to what your brain is doing while you're reading, is called metacognition. It is thinking about thinking or knowing about knowing. Okay? It refers to our efforts to stay focused, understand what we're reading and what's going on in our brain. It's being conscious of your own thinking. And this takes effort and it takes practice. So don't get frustrated with yourself when you're first beginning, but just keep trying and bringing your head, your mind back to what you're doing. Everybody's mind wanders, and we all have different kind of distractions while we're reading. So go ahead and just give yourself some grace and work on this very important skill. Okay, I talked about one of my favorite things being annotating a text. Annotating a text. And this is very helpful if you get used to doing it. If I can get my slide to change for you. There we go. The guide to annotating a text. And this is also in Blackboard. So you'll have this file in front of you, or you can print it out. Different things to do to help yourself. You underline or highlight every main point. You look for the thesis statement or the topic sentence. You can underline words that come up over and over again. Okay? You can write a brief summary. I mean, just a few words or phrases. Circle key words. You can define them, or especially if there's something you don't know. You can look it up or find out using context clues and just make a definition in the margin. Use a question mark if you don't understand, or if you brought up a different question in your mind, write your question in the margin. Use an exclamation point for something that's surprising or you thought it was really good, it captured your attention. You can draw an arrow when you're making a connection to something and talk about how they relate to each other. You can put EX when there's an example of something that the author is trying to make a point about. Numbering arguments or important ideas is a really good idea. Sometimes they have one paragraph says here are 3 examples, and number them so you can see them clearly. Emojis are really fun because you can react to what's being read. If you don't like it, if it makes you mad, if it makes you sad, you can draw your own emojis there. So I have a example of picture of somebody who's annotated a text. Here's for you to see. You could see how this might help you when you're going back to what your brain was doing. This person divided it up into points or paragraphs, the first point, and numbered the paragraphs, the parts of the paper. So this can really help you get a handle on what you've read. It may look a little sloppy here, but when you go back, you'll see your brain really remembers it and understood it. So you will have many chances to annotate this week, or several chances, not many, don't worry. So I hope that you will practice this and pay attention to what your mind is doing